Hello, everyone. This is Jason White, and welcome to our 17th ISO podcast. I'm joined on this podcast via Discord by Alberto Ibañez and August Watring. Gentlemen, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing? So glad to be here discussing this, which is going to be such a funny podcast.
Yeah, it'll be entertaining, that's for sure. August, how you doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, we're all aware that the Indy 500 is an unparalleled race in terms of historical significance. It's right up there with Le Mans and Monaco. It's one of those events that kind of transcends the sport itself. You know, you may not watch basketball, but you know who the Boston Celtics are. It's something that goes beyond actual sports recognition and into the zeitgeist of world or American culture, I guess you could say. Hope I'm using the word zeitgeist in the right way there. Anyway, so the reason for this podcast is, unlike a lot of other events, there's something about the Indy 500 that seems to generate genuine moments that make you go, did I just see that? That just happened? It seems to happen a lot with the 500 over the years. And indeed, when we were putting together the list for this podcast, we had a hard time coming up with 10, just simply 10 items to go through. We had to do some ties in order to make this list work. So it was difficult to put it together, but this is going to be our top 10 what the F moments in the Indy 500 over the years. And I think you'll agree as we go through these that they deserve to be where they are on this list. And you might think of some that we didn't think of. So if you want to comment on that, please do. But just your thoughts going into this list. Alberto, I'll start with you.
Oh, we were actually commenting before we started recording that we are sim racers. We enjoy doing what we do, and there are many stupid situations where you are doing sim racing because it's always the fact that you are not risking your life, that you are not risking millions of equipment. So sim racing has often been accused of having incredible antics by the part of the players and that. But when you look at the history of the Indy 500, you get to think, man. It's like, and that wasn't any kind of sim racing game. It was reality. It was true. True surpasses fiction.
Yeah. August, what about you?
I mean, in my own life, being an Indiana native, Central Indiana native, and going to the Indy 500, there are many things that I question with my own eyes, be it on track or off track. The Indy 500 never disappoints in moments that make you question what you're seeing.
I think you put it very well. Yeah, that's definitely the way it is. And that's why I wanted August on this podcast, because he's an Indiana native. He's been to 500 many times, and he's aware of the history of the race, probably better than any of us. Even I would include myself and Alberto. You have a much more intimate understanding of the race since you have such close proximity to it. All right, so let's get started. We've got a couple of honorable mentions first, and I'm going to hand it over to August for the first one. And this is Joseph Newgarden Milk Gimp commercial. I honestly have no clue what this is, so you go ahead and tell us what this is all about.
So in it was 2014. 2014. I mean, the Indy 500 had not. I don't know. It was kind of in a weird spot since the end of the split. We're still trying. The series is still trying to rebuild momentum and energy and excitement, and they're trying to, as the series will always try to do, promote their drivers. Well, one thing that the series has may or may not have gotten right is how best to promote their drivers. And Joseph Newgarden got asked to do a commercial that he did not know how it was going to end up. And all I got to say is watch the 2-minute commercial for yourself and come back to me. And if you did not say, man, that was weird, and why was that put on national television, then I don't know. Like, just give it a watch. Let your own eyes be the judge.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's I've only seen a brief snippet of it, but Alberto, I'm sure you'd agree. In the race to try to get more fans, sometimes dubious decisions are made in terms of marketing.
I, I I watched it previously. I didn't even know that existed, but
Me neither.
when I was watching it, it was like, I mean, this cannot be true. This didn't go out in television, did it? It it's weird. It's like it should have been like, I don't know, 50 Shades of New Garden, some kind of that commercial. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, because above anything, I was like looking the whole commercial, trying to understand what was actually the product being promoted. I mean, the brand, and I didn't even get to know it.
Yeah, that's exactly why an advertisement typically fails. You don't know what you were watching or what they were promoting. So how did it get done what it was supposed to get done? But yeah, it's I think this definitely qualifies as one of the weirder moments, if not a shocking moment for the 500. Now, the other honorable mention are botched USAC late race starts, 1995 and 97, both adversely affecting the same driver, Scott Goodyear. Now, you could argue that this should not be on this list, and it isn't. It's an honorable mention. But the reason why it's not should be because USAC screwing up is hardly new news. That happened all the time, especially throughout the 1970s. There were many historic gaffes that they made. They even one time published the Unser family chili recipe on USAC stationery, and they got that wrong, which leaves a lot of people to go, is there anything they will not screw up? But 95, that one's a bit of a contentious one, because you could argue they're coming back to green, and this is going to basically determine the race very late, and Scott Goodyear is bringing the field back to green with Jacques Villeneuve in second. They come around to turn 4. The pace car has not yet left the track. It is moving at a very slow pace. And Scott, probably doing the correct thing in terms of safety, doesn't hit the brakes, doesn't check up. He just keeps going. In fact, it was Villeneuve who checked up and nearly got collected by the field behind him, trying to keep things legal. But, did Scott pass the pace car? Yes, he did. Was the pace car going the speed it was going? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I mean, not to spoil anything for later on, but it's not our first moment with a pit car on this list.
Oh yeah, it's not.
And I find that a pace car driver messing up at the Indy 500 is also nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
It has also gone to show how in the current day, a lot of the time the pace car driver is a former driver instead of just some Yahoo that they say, hey, come drive the pace car because you have a little bit of whatever spotlight something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've always been of the opinion that the pace car driver should be someone with racing experience. It's tempting to put someone in there for their celebrity value, but I know that Chuck Yeager drove the pace car one time, which was pretty cool. But really, I don't know, Alberto. What do you think? Do you think we should limit who drives a pace car to someone who actually is a qualified driver, or in some way can be counted on to consistently bring the field back to green?
Yeah, you guys read my mind because I mean, it's pretty obvious, and that's the direction that motorsport has taken. You already got in Formula One Bernard Mailander for a lot of years doing that precise role and that. And I mean, people don't usually realize that it's not just about being able to drive the car around. They are going to very high speeds.
Yes.
I mean, it's not as if they are like crawling around. They look like that because we are used to race speeds, but those cars are going quick. And even if the pace cars are usually well prepared for that, not always, but they are usually hyped up engines and beefed up suspensions and all that. But still, it's not really that easy to go around at least, say, 100 mph, and that's the minimum many times. For race car, that's nothing. Race cars do have very high problems of overheating and engine issues and all that. If they are going too slow, they are not meant for that. So the pace car driver needs to know what he's doing, and also he needs to have very good sense of timing to leave the bank to not disrupt the formation behind him and all that. So I think this is a good testimony to what can happen if you leave the pace car in the hands of people who don't know what to do with it.
Well, to be fair, I don't know precisely who was driving the pace car on that day in 1995, but one of the first things that Goodyear said once he got out of the car was how inconsistent the car was, and that Pruitt almost hit it one time coming back to a restart or something to that effect. So that definitely played a role in what goes on, but you definitely have to lay 100% of the fault at USAC's feet for the 1997 finish when they're coming down for a restart, which some people say they had no clue was going to happen. Scott Goodyear especially said he had no clue that there was going to be a restart, and he's second behind his teammate Arie Luyendyk. They come down. They're going to let them race for one more lap. They show the green and white flag at the same time, and the yellow lights remain on around the track. So everyone is thoroughly confused. Luyendyk actually curses on the radio because he's like, he doesn't know what they're doing. And you can see that Scott Goodyear in the video is caught totally unawares. He's actually weaving back and forth, not even in a race mode or ready to take a green flag. And that basically cost him his chance to challenge Arie for the win because of the confusion. So that, again, poor Scott Goodyear is star-crossed at the 500. I mean, I'm in a way, I'm really happy that he got 2 Michigan 500 wins because Indy was not giving him any breaks at all. But that last one, I think you two would agree, really. And after that, there were consequences. USAC was removed from IRL duties following that race. Do you think that was justified?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, USAC has caused issues for decades before this. Mm-hmm. And, now with, the split going on and, for better or for worse, Tony George trying to put up a decent product, I mean, they had to go. They had to, build their own sanctioning body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting we're talking about that now because IndyCar is going to have their own separate sanctioning body now. They've decided to do, which is an interesting move. Hopefully, will lend further legitimacy to the proceedings. Yeah, Alberto, USAC, we laugh about it. Their tendency to kind of botch things. But if you're someone who has a chance to win the biggest race in the world, it's not that funny, is it?
No, it isn't. But the thing with USAC is that, as you said, they had a tendency to botch up, but you gotta wonder why they weren't removed from sanctioning that race. Not sanctioning, okay, because they were a very well-established organization and with a lot of history, but from really organizing that race from the point of view of refereeing it, so to speak, because. Let's not fool ourselves. By the 1990s, USAC was just a pale shade of what they were formerly in the 60s and 70s and all that. I mean, and they weren't even that good when they were at the top of their game. But back then, CART had already taken over. Later, did so the IndyCar Racing League. And USAC was basically organizing minor championships and things like, I don't know, Trans Am and that. And they were no longer used to officing such big events.
Yeah, like Silver Crown Racing.
That's
things of that nature.
Yeah. You where you still see USAC today is dirt track racing. Midget National Championship, Sprint Car National Championship, and like what Jason just said, Silver Crown, which going back, weird enough, is the closest analog that we have to 50s Indy cars.
Yeah, pretty much.
Grassroots racing.
Yeah, that's the grassroots of what started it. So, well, anyway, I think we've covered that topic quite well. So let's now move into the actual 10 that we've chosen. Number 10, and this is one that on a very basic level shocked and made people go, what the F? Emerson Fittipaldi refusing to drink milk in winner's circle after winning the 500. Now, Emerson's a businessman. And like any businessman, he wants to promote his product. That's only natural. And in addition to being a racer, Emerson was quite the businessman at that time, and he still is. In addition to wheels and other ventures, he produced oranges. But when you choose to promote orange juice by supplanting a long-standing Indy tradition in front of hundreds of thousands of fans, And on worldwide TV, you have to know there's going to be a negative response, right?
I, I'm of the opinion, and this is like kind of odd coming from a local Hoosier. Um, I don't really care.
Oh,
He
wow.
drank the milk in '89.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, and you know what? The milk at the end of the day is a marketing scheme.
You're
It's a marketing. It's an ad for United Dairy Farmers of America.
You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. In the end, it is a promotion.
And you know what? He played their promotion back in '89, and in '93, the man's getting near at retirement, and he needs to secure his future. Now, granted, he just won the biggest race in the world, but the man's got his business,
That's
and
true.
I'm fine with that. To be quite honest, I think he should have mixed the milk and orange juice and made a orange Julius right there in Victory Circle.
That's funny. Well, are we making too much out of this, Alberto? What do you think?
Well, from my point of view, being non-American and knowing obviously the trajectory of Emerson Fittipaldi also as Formula One driver, because remember he wasn't like any kind of newcomer, even I don't know, just a random guy that went there and started racing in the United States and became famous there. He was a two-time Formula One champion. I mean, if you are familiar with marketing, with branding, and with all the money that pours into the sports and how you have to treat very well your sponsors, then it's Formula One drivers.
Yeah.
And in the case of Emerson, I think for me personally, it sums up by saying he should have known better.
Yeah, I think he should have. Yeah, I think he should have known there was going to be blowback. The kicker is that if you see the video of him, he visibly pushes the milk away, which I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
and it's
man, I
like,
don't
look,
know.
this is everybody knows that it's some kind of tradition or I mean, okay, let's set for a moment aside the fact that it's a tradition. Just say that it's the sponsor. But it's absolutely stupid because it's one of the sponsors of the race. I mean, you cannot do that and like skip what is scripted and then go by even worse promoting your own thing without that being in the script. I think it was absolutely against any kind of, how do you say it, consideration with the main sponsor. He could have well done other things, and it reminds me of that incident. I don't know who was the driver, but I know it happened when a driver, I don't know if it was with James Hunt or one of those, he was caught basically smoking cigarettes from a brand that was different than the one that was sponsoring his car.
I read in his biography, James Hunt's biography, that one of the people at McLaren, their job was to load up Marlboro packets with Rothman's cigarettes because that was the brand that he preferred. So, based on what I read, I mean, I guess at some point you screw up and he's caught smoking Rothmans. Okay, fine.
It's one of the things. I mean, it's part of the business. It's part of the sport.
Yeah.
And you gotta go along with it. So I don't think it was a good idea, and I don't think it helped orange juice sales in particular.
No, I do not think that you could see a measurable spike in orange juice sales on Monday morning. No, I don't think so. That's funny. All right, so let's move on now to the next one, number 9. This is a kind of obscure one that a lot of racing fans, maybe even IndyCar fans, may not be aware of. It only got local TV coverage on WRTV in Indianapolis because they just happened to be there covering qualifying. But this is when Jim Hurtubise ran out onto the track on foot during the 1978 time trials. Let me just briefly set the stage here. Now, Hurtubise is famous for trying to qualify his front-engine Mallard in the 500 long after rear-engine cars are considered the performance standard. And he just keeps doing this, sometimes with funny results because he put it in line one year as a joke, and then when he got to the head of the line, opened the engine compartment, and there was beer in there for everybody. So, he was, at times it was kind of a lighthearted thing. But that definitely changed in 78. He enters the Mallard yet again. USAC says that all cars have to be practiced over 180 miles per hour to be allowed to qualify, and their claim is that the mallard cannot do that or has not done that. And this is a verbally explained rule to the drivers. It's not an actual written rule, and Hurtubise seizes on that and says because it's not a written rule and it's just sent out as a bulletin, it's not legal. So they still decided that Hurtubise was not going to be able to make an attempt. Then on bump day, while the track were cleaning up from an accident that Dick Simon had practicing, Hurtubise tries to put his car in line to qualify, and they say, no, you can't do that. So Hurtubise protested by trying to block the other cars from going on the track. He actually stood in front of Bob Harkey's car and wouldn't move. And after they moved Harkey's car around Hurtubise, Hurtubise then actually gets in Harkey's car as a protest. So when they finally convinced him to get out of the car, he then goes to the front of the car and resumes standing in front of the line. So they ended up having to restrain Hurtubise with security so that Harkey could leave the pit lane and try to make his attempt. Keep in mind that the clock is ticking the whole time, and he's denying an opportunity for someone to make a run to get in the field when it's ticking down. You know, you can't just wait forever to do this. And after Harkey goes on the track, Hurtubise then runs onto the track trying to stop the proceedings. And he actually got tackled on the track by fellow driver John Martin, believe it or not. And eventually he was escorted away by state police. So, I mean, a very shocking thing to happen, but also kind of sad too. Wouldn't you guys agree?
In my opinion, everybody loved Herc.
Yeah.
And after that, it was just like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're throwing away a legacy of being one of the guys, you know?
Over a rather silly premise, too.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand wanting to continue to try to make something that shouldn't work. I'm all too familiar with it in my own life. But it's just sad. And after 78, I mean, no, nothing, you know, Herc never, pardon me, he never recovered.
Yeah, it really kind of destroyed his legacy. I mean, a lot of us like to be, you know, hang on to nostalgia, especially us in our league, because we like historic race cars. But at some point, you have to acknowledge what's happening, and it's just amazing to me that, I mean, what went from being a really kind of lighthearted, funny, quirky thing that was good copy for media, and it suddenly became, you know, sad and shocking and really kind of just you feel sorry for the guy, right, Alberto?
Yeah, well, when I was looking at the list that we are discussing today, and I was seeing this one, Jim Hurtubise, comparing it with others, and not to make any spoiler, but we will be talking here mostly about things that happen in the race, racing. With the exception maybe of that about Emerson refusing the milk and that. But the thing with Hurtubise is this happened in the 70s. In this case, in the late 70s. But you got to remember that the 70s were a very, very wild time in many respects, and that it was also the time when the transition started to happen between, I'm not going to say amateurish racing, but not so professionalized racing. Yes, the drivers were professionals, but there was not, at first, there wasn't as much money, as much promotion, TV showtime, and all that. I mean, that all rolled into the 80s. And so there were some characters like Hurtubise who belonged to a former era, to a period where they were doing really wild things. You and me have read, I think, both the biographies of Bobby Unser and Mario Andretti, and we can agree that what they tell they were doing outside the track and during the nights and the races, and it was absolutely wild. It was completely something that you would not expect modern drivers to do, to run that wild. And Hurtubise was just one of those characters watching his time run out and not being able probably to adapt to what was happening, and still thinking like he could do this as if he was, I don't know, in the smallest town speedway doing a local race, because that's the kind of protest that you would expect someone to do then. And remember, again, to put it into frame, this is one funny thing, and it could have made it into the list. But when I was looking for material to model our tracks for the 70s and all that, and I was looking for pictures of Indy in the 70s, one of the first pictures that came to me prominently was a streaker running in turn one in 74.
Well,
I mean,
that
people
was,
were like that in the 70s.
yeah,
I mean, imagine.
70s were a weird time for a lot of
I
So
mean,
put that
reasons.
into frame and consider her to be, like I said, someone whose time was running out. And it's like, okay, you can understand it, but yeah, you have to feel for the guy.
Yeah, that's very appropriate context because you have the old mixing with the new in more ways than one. Technology, personalities, value systems. You know, it that definitely played into that. So,
Well, I
but
can tell you also, having read about AJ Foyt, that he did quite similar things when he was running, because he used to run also in small speedways just for the heck of it, for fun. Okay, he did racing and that, and of course he was all a character, and it wouldn't be strange from AJ Foyt, for example, to take measures like that if he had felt like being unfairly treated in a local speedway.
yeah,
But
but
yeah, the Urtubis did it in the Indy 500.
yeah, but there you have an interesting comparison because Foyt was able to adjust
Yeah.
to the realities of racing in a way that few people did. And Hurtubise, for whatever reason, just could not. That there's a big difference there. So, but I think history will be kind to Hurtubise, though. People remember him more for the positive stuff than what happened in '78. Okay. Number 8 on the list, Dennis Vitolo takes Nigel Mansell out of the 1994 Indy 500. Now, this one just came out of nowhere. And the funny part about it too is that Paul Page and the people in the booth were just flabbergasted as well. They're like, "How did this happen?" Because basically what was going on, they were under yellow, and they had been under yellow for for at least a couple of laps, and people are taking, from what I remember, I've looked at the video, it looks as if they were on the warm-up apron to bypass a section where an accident had occurred. But in any case, there were a lot of people in the warm-up lane, including Mansell. And here comes Vitolo barreling, into the warm-up lane, and he goes right on top of Nigel Mansell's car in a very awkward-looking accident. As Mansell said later, he's like, "I'm just coming down the lane, just minding my own business. Somebody tries to take my head off." So that's how it felt to him, and it is how it kind of looks. But a very, very strange incident. To Vitolo's credit, he did fess up and say it was his fault, but it's really, really shocking when you have a star of incredible proportion taken out by somebody who you could argue is only there because they worked something out financially. But I just remember that one being a definite what the F moment for me. I don't know. How do you guys feel?
yeah, I mean, when you have the current series champion, the former, Formula One world champion, uh, being taken out by somebody who is most often described as a weapon. Yeah, no, it makes you scratch your head.
Yeah. What about you, Alberto?
I think what made this thing really stand out is when you were back then looking at the footage live. Obviously, the cameras were looking at the action everywhere in the track. They were trying to follow things and that. And even if this could have like gone by like any crash racing incident, stupid thing or that, the funny thing is that all of a sudden you get a shot of one car sitting on top of the
That's
other
right. That's right.
out of
Yeah.
nowhere. Out of nowhere. I mean, you get no footage, and everybody suddenly goes crazy because it was the epitome, probably, of the what the F moment. Because
Yes.
all of a sudden, you get that picture, and it's like it blows your mind because how did that happen? And everybody starts like rewinding, taking a look. Where did they find? And there is nowhere that you can actually find what really happened. I
Well,
mean, all the footage that you get is the camera from Nigel Mansell that goes off, and then you see the outcome. And apparently, what happened was that Vitolo, going too quick, basically he hit Jeff Andretti's car from behind, and that catapulted him up, and he landed into the Nigel Mansell's car, very much like the Duke boys stunt, something like that. And you can see Mansell. That's another very funny thing because you see them. It's like almost cartoonish because you see like Mansell sitting there, not moving, not doing anything until he all of a sudden realizes that there might be fire and jumps out of the car. But there were several seconds where he was just sitting there, and you can really connect with the guy that was thinking, what has happened? How did that? Where I am? What did happen?
Yeah. Well,
Something.
to be one thing though, there is fan footage that exists. It's not very good fan footage. It's from just the stands in turn 3, but it does describe basically what you indicated. But it's the only view that gives an actual clear, semi-clear example of what happened. Because you're right, ABC didn't physically catch it on their cameras. They only could present us with the interrupted video from Mansell's car. So we do have one record of what happened. All right, moving on now to number 7, and this is a tie because they're basically the same style of incident. Scott McLaughlin in 2025 and Guerrero in 1992 crashing out on the pace laps. This is shocking for obvious reasons. I was at the race in 2025, and August and I were both sitting in turn 3 and saw the Pennzoil car flash up on the screen with all the parts askew. And I'm just like, oh no! It just, I don't care if you're a fan of Scott or not. It's awful. You don't want to see this happen to a racer before the 500 even starts.
That last year's 500 was cold. The morning was cold.
Yes, it was.
And the same could be said for 92. It's one of those times where it's like I do believe there was even a little drizzle that didn't necessarily delay the race much. I think maybe 10 minutes, on last year's race in 2025. And I was the whole morning, the drive down to the track, I was wondering, are we going to see something like 92? Because it was the coldest 500 that we've had, I believe, since 92. And as we all know, cold temperatures do not bode well for rubber sticking to the road. And in both cases, drivers were warming their cars up and ended up in the wall.
Yeah, I mean, Alberto, the thing that I would underline with something like this is the 500 is an event that takes a month to get ready for. And it's not a typical race weekend where you just show up on a Thursday, Friday you practice, Saturday qualify, boom, the event happens on Sunday, and you leave. And I think that has a great deal to do with why these are such shocking moments, because it's the biggest stage in the world for motorsport. And to crash out before you even take the green flag, it's a month of work down the drain. And it just, that's why it's so shocking that should happen like that after such preparation.
Yeah, well, the thing that you can say when you look at this is that we are talking here about very good and experienced drivers. Even Roberto Guerrero was, if I remember correctly, on the pole in that pace lap, which is absolutely heartbreaking. So, if anything, I mean, it comes into this list of what the F moments because it's like you would never expect at all drivers of that caliber to suffer such an issue, especially probably in the pole sitter. And that's what makes it into this list. I mean, crashing from the pole absolutely out of nowhere and destroying their, not your race, but like you say, a month of work is completely shocking. And it's something in the case of 1992, that's something I wanted to highlight. It's something that somehow throws the mood and throws the whole race down into the bin for many people, because you were like building up the whole month, watching the time trial, see the guy on the pole, and you are like the day before, and then when you come into the race, you are like making yourself mentally prepared for if it's your favorite driver or if there is another one, and it's like, oh, I want that guy to win, oh, what will be he doing, and that, and all of a sudden your mental scheme, what you had thought the race could be, disappears. You are like in front of a blank canvas, so to speak. So it leaves you completely disoriented.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
the pole
so
aspect too. Yeah.
yeah, the another thing about 92 that always sticks with me is that, you know, Roberto is loved by a lot of people at the track and had, seen heartbreak at the motor speedway before. You flash back to 1987 where he's racing, doing quite well, and then hits a tire, and that gets launched into the stands, and unfortunately someone passes away from that. But you know Roberto lost the ability to use his clutch, and because of that, Big Al Unser, won his fourth 500.
Yep.
And so you come to 1992, 5 years later, and you see somebody who has had the heartbreak that people want to win the race in the fence before it even starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, those are all really good points. But yeah, it's just really heartbreaking is the best word to use in a situation like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, number 6, and I was surprised that I didn't think of this one. It was August that did, but for some reason this slipped by my memory. It should not. The 1981 Rick Mears pit fire, which certainly was a shocking incident. First pit stop in the race for Mears, and the fuel splashes over the cockpit and ignites. They swoop in immediately with water and fire extinguishers, but the thing that really made it scary was there was complete confusion. There was no way for people to tell who was on fire because methanol burns clear. So you just started throwing water and fire extinguisher foam at people who were jumping up and down. And there's a really good video about this, a recap of it with Rick Mears on the Speedway Museum's YouTube channel. And Mears talks about how there were situations where he was inadvertently lighting and reigniting the methanol by walking around, and the flame would catch it and ignite it again. And so there was that going on too. So not only can you not see it, you can't tell, you're inadvertently keeping the thing going. I think he said something like it lasted, like the whole thing lasted 30 seconds, but seemed like 30 minutes to him. I'm sure it did. But yeah, from a spectator point of view and watching it on TV, it must have been really frightening and makes everyone go, what in the world is going on?
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that motor racing is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
That especially at the time using methanol, it's scary. Um, and it's something that sticks with us till today. In pop culture with Talladega Nights, the scene with Ricky Bobby screaming, "I'm on fire! Help me, Oprah Winfrey! Help me, Tom Cruise!" That's a reference to Rick Mears' pit fire.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
people joke because we're so far removed, but yeah, it's a stark reminder.
Yeah, it really, it's a situation where uh, you try to look for a silver lining, Alberto, and the only real silver lining there is that CART, which was the sanctioning body of IndyCar, more broadly, this race sanctioned by USAC, but CART made changes to the fuel probe and the tank and introduced the dead man's valve that had to be pulled to allow the fuel to flow. And those, I mean, if there is a silver lining here, it's that positive changes were made that improved safety.
It is, yes. CART really reacted to that as they had done previously on other things. But the point here, I mean, August said something that is quite interesting, and that's the pop culture thing. Or if you want archetypes or something like that, then I think what was really scary of this uh, was all that confusion, but that confusion was caused, the root of it was the invisibility of the enemy. And it's like when you watch the movie Jaws or something like that, anything that we humans are basically visual creatures. We use the vision to defend ourselves. And when there is something hitting on you that you cannot even see, that you cannot even from, it's incredibly frightening, and it leads to confusion and all of that. So I think if you, for example, compare it and think about the very famous incident of Niki Lauda in the Nürburgring and all the flames and all that from the fuel. Well, you can see like, oh man, that's dangerous, and people were immediately stopping and helping him and all that. But when you look at the Rick Mears incident, it's like people, you all of a sudden see people jumping around as if they had, I don't know, a wasp in their helmet or or sticking in the clothes. You know, at first you don't know what's going on, and then you realize it's not just that something's going on, something really dangerous is going on, something that can kill you. And that's what all of a sudden your confusion turns into absolute thrill and fright.
Yeah. Um, the other positive thing is that Mears did not suffer any serious after effects from this, and his crew were all right for the most part. The I don't believe there were any crew. Was the crew all right for the most part after that August? I can't remember.
I believe so.
Yeah.
But I mean, one can only expect due to nature of methanol fire that somebody got burned.
Well,
Beyond just Rick Mears.
Yeah, Mears had to have plastic surgery on his nose to fix the damage, but that was pretty much it. That was the extent of what happened to him, thankfully.
And remember, they were wearing a balaclava, and even so, he got burned. So,
well, he in the video I cite from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, he said the flames were coming up under his helmet through the front, and he had to actually put his gloves up there, his fireproof gloves, to try to stop the flames from going up into the helmet. So pretty scary stuff. Okay, so now we go to number 5, and this is one that's been documented a lot. There's not really much new to add to this, to what's been said other places, but Kevin Kogan crashing at the start of the 1982 500. Everybody's coming down for the start. Kogan is starting second. He's in the middle of the front row. Mears is to his left on the pole. Foyt is to his right. And right before they get to the start-finish line, Kogan's car suddenly goes out of control, goes to the right, hip checks Foyt, and then does a complete turn and pointed at the pit wall and gets T-boned by Mario Andretti, taking both cars out of the race. And there's also some people who, in checking up for the incident, had some collisions at the back and lost some wheels. And it was a what the F moment, because allegedly this is a Formula One driver. He's driving for Penske. Surely a Penske driver wouldn't be caught up in something like this. But it had very detrimental consequences for Kogan's career. It basically went into a nosedive after that.
Yeah, you can add with it, which was not just a car crash, but a career crash. Oh, that's what people mostly say about Kogan, because it was a downfall, a real downfall. I mean, especially Mario Andretti was very hard on him after the race, and the comment that, the comment he said was something like, "That's what will happen when you send a boy to do a man's job," which is like, I mean, hitting there where it could hurt most, and it's on Kevin Kogan's inexperience, because he was an upcoming driver to the IndyCar scene, and he had done well. He was there in the front row. But that's something that absolutely undermines your confidence. And even if, I mean, Penske tried to back it up, saying that it had been a joint a drive shaft, broken, and that's what all of a sudden made the car veer. I think nobody believed that.
Well, I mean, it could have happened, and that would have produced a similar kind of accident.
After Mario's furious phrases against Kogan, I think everybody was more inclined to believe what Mario said, because he was obviously a very popular driver, and Kogan, well, he had all the numbers to take the blame on that completely. So
yeah, the other thing that is not discussed much, and I want August's point of view on this, the cars came down extremely slowly, considering the era. And the person's responsibility to bring the cars down at speed for the start is the pole sitter, Rick Mears. Now, how much do you think that factors into what happened here?
I would not be surprised that it plays a decent amount into it. You bring the field down very slow, and the early 80s cars had big turbos, big power, and you start to take the green flag. An inexperienced driver may not have the wherewithal to anticipate the boost hitting, and then you spin the rears, you lose it, and the thing that makes me question, the whole thing is just like it went right, it didn't go left. Most of the time when you spin up the wheels and lose control, you go left. Just due to the nature of how the car's set up.
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel like that lends some credence to parts breaking. It's one that I've always felt weird about, because I don't dislike Kevin Kogan.
No,
I always thought he was a fine driver, but it was more than just a car crash. It was a career crash, like Alberto said.
Yeah, he did end up winning one IndyCar race, I think, at Phoenix, but it's small consolation to have that happen on such a huge stage. All right, number 4 on the list. This is one that it kind of actually mirrors what we were talking about with pace car drivers earlier. The pace car crashes in the pits after the start of the 71 500. Now, a little bit of background on this. The guy who was driving the car was named Eldon Palmer. He was a local Dodge dealer. And the other thing that makes this interesting is who was in the car with him. He had Tony Hullman in the car with him, John Glenn, and Chris Schenkel of ABC Sports. So they're all in the car too, which, wow. And to Palmer's credit, and I think this is an important point, he actually put a marker in the pits to tell him when to hit the brakes. So he knew the responsibility of what he was doing, and he took precautions. He actually planned. So it's tempting to just blame him, being some Dodge dealer, random guy just driving the pace car. Should not happen. But he made the effort to try to know when to pit and when to brake properly in the pit lane. And that marker was removed for some reason. And so when he came around to come into the pits, that marker disappeared, and he missed his braking point, and he careens into the photographer's stand at the end of the pit lane. Thankfully, nobody was killed. That's the miracle. But he had all these, dignitaries in the car with him. I mean, that's incredibly shocking, especially for the fans who are in attendance. They're watching the race, and then suddenly there's another and completely separate incident that occurs, in the pit lane. Yeah, just is another example of how big of a responsibility that is.
Yeah, it's a very large responsibility, but I the thought that keeps coming back to me is, in sim racing, we learn all sorts of racetracks and we have to find our brake markers. And one thing that you shouldn't do is make your braking markers something that can move.
Yes.
I.e.,
yes.
cones, shadows, things like that. So if just so happens come the day when you actually need to do the thing, properly, you have an immovable object that is your reference. And the issue here is it was a movable object, and the object was moved.
Yep, that's basically it. I can't think of any other. I mean, I do remember one other race where the pace car crashed, and that was actually Johnny Rutherford driving the pace car at Long Beach, and it crashed under yellow. It ran wide and hit a tire barrier or something. But yeah, this is a pretty rare occurrence. I guess.
I think that was another race where the brakes failed on the safety car, but I'm not sure about it. But regarding this one, I think it's important to note that the car was coming into the pits at 125 mph.
Yes.
And by the time of the crash, it was around 60 mph. And you gotta think that this was a beautiful 1971 Dodge Challenger convertible, which I think there are very, very few of them, but it's a very heavy car. It's an American muscle car. It has tiny disc brakes at the front and drums at the rear, and it weighs a lot, even loaded with 4 people, and it's going at really insane speeds. And one thing that people also don't realize is that when you are, even if Indy is not considered a very wide track, but when you are going quick in one of those tracks, you don't really notice it at such speeds. I mean, it's like it feels as if you are going, I don't know, 60, 70 mph on a normal highway or freeway, because the track is so big, so wide when compared to normal roads. So there are many things that could here give a false sense of confidence, of speed to the driver, because he was not a professional. So it's not just the fact that the cone was removed. That's true. But even so, when he was looking around, I guess, for a mark, he probably wasn't even aware of how quick he was going or how much it would take him to slow down. It probably was just a panic, completely a panic movement towards the end, locking the brakes and then running into the photographer's stand. So it's, yeah, the many factors there concurring to cause this problem.
Yep. No, I think we.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
that's all right.
another pace car crash that comes to mind more recently is the 2019 Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle.
Oh, you're
The
right. Yeah.
the VP of GM's executive, whatever, I don't know, corporate words, was driving the pace car and was coming out of turn 2 and coming over the bump, lost the rear, smashed it into the wall. Happy days.
Yeah, Mark Royce really embarrassed himself in the day, and I give him credit. He owned up to it, and basically just he was. They had some video later on of him talking about safety in cars or something, and he mentioned that high speed accident or something like this could be embarrassing, and then he quips, "And don't I know it?" He's he gets full marks from me for owning up to it and not running from it. So owning a mistake definitely can take some of the sting out of the mistake. I have always believed. Okay, so number 3, this is one that's actually has nothing to do with an accident or bad behavior by somebody or a messed up responsibility. It's actually a positive one. Danny Sullivan's spin and win in 1985 on lap number 120. We did a podcast with Danny Sullivan a while back, and he talks about it at length. So there's no real need to go into huge detail about what happened. But he basically, he tries to pass Mario Andretti, who's in the lead. Sullivan goes below the line onto the flat part of the track, comes back up into the banking, and that's just enough to send his car out of control. He spins in front of Mario. Incredible cloud of smoke, and Mario fades to the left kind of instinctually and avoids Sullivan's car. Sullivan manages to get the car running again, and it just happens to be pointing the right way when it stops spinning. And he continues. And one of the most fun parts about it is that the announcers in the booth are just losing their collective minds. Like, how did he do that? And it became a part of Indy lore because he ended up going on to win the race. I really, both of you, I really wish I could have been there on that day and experienced that firsthand. If I had to pick one Indy moment.
You and I both. I very much wish I could have been there for that one. Yeah, no, there are very many races in the 80s that I wish I could have been there for, just for, I don't know. I like the 80s and the 500.
All right.
I think as a consolation, it went so quickly that you probably would have missed it easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the funny thing about this is that this is a situation that probably catches both extremes. Like, it could have gone so wrong and it did end up so well that you get the maximum absolute from both extremes. I mean, could have ended in, I don't know, a big accident because it happened there in one of the turns and it ended up with him winning the race. So, I mean, what bigger contrast can you expect from any incident?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're closing in on the top now. Number 2, and this is a tie once again. DNQs for Penske and Rahal in different years of the race. Rahal DNQing because the chassis he was developing just did not generate the speed or the grip that he needed. It was very difficult for him to get a handle on it, and his crew, they tried their very best, and in the end, they just couldn't do it. And Penske, that's probably even more shocking. Penske DNQing, that's 2 cars, not one, that DNQ'd. Seeing them not in the race was just shocking. I mean, because how can you have a Indy 500 without a Rahal or a Penske car? That's like, how does that happen? It's not a race without them.
at the end of the day, the 500 is the fastest 33 drivers.
Yes.
And you go far enough back in history, there were 500s without the Penske's, and there were 500s without the Rahals, and you
True.
go far enough into the future, and there will be 500s without the Penske's and 500s without the Rahals.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the race. And if you are among the fastest 33, congratulations. If not, do better next year.
Yeah, that is the way it goes. It's funny because we always have so much sentimental feeling about the race itself, but there are times when the race itself can be very unsentimental. And this is one of those occasions. When the gun goes off at 6 o'clock on the last day of qualifying, that is it. Like it or leave it. The number one, and this is like a tie also. J.R. Hildebrand crashing on the last lap in 2011, and Little Al crashing out on lap 199 in 1989. I don't know that especially lately, I was watching the Daytona 500, and crashes close to the end of a race, especially in NASCAR, seems to be the normal thing nowadays, which back then would have been strange. But I was at the race in 2011 when Hildebrand crashed. I was looking straight at the Jumbotron when it happened. He hits the wall, and I let out a yell, and I was the only one in my section who happened to notice it first. Everybody else then suddenly realized what was going on because they were all watching the track, and I was watching Hildebrand on the screen, and I saw him hit the wall, and I'm like, oh, no, that can't be. At first we thought that he had coasted across the line with half a car and fluids leaking out to win it, but then it was obvious to us that Dan Weldon had taken the win. And then, of course, you have the 89 one where Al and Emerson are just battling for the win. And in the end, they were pretty generous to each other in looking back at that. And it was just like Little Al, I think, says, two people went into that corner and only one came out. And he's like, it's the big, it's the 500. That's, they both wanted it that badly. But yeah. How shocking do you rate these incidents? Or do they deserve?
Well, I think what happens here with the two top ones, with the two top picks that we have had, is that you got one thing in common, and that's huge expectations that suddenly vanish into thin air. In the case of Penske and Rahal did not qualify. I mean, Penske had won the race in 94. They did not even qualify in 95. Rahal had won the championship in 92, did not even qualify there in 93. And here you got almost the same. I mean, people who were like, especially the case of Little Al, almost on the verge of winning the race, and all of a sudden, bang, they are gone. And nobody is expecting it. It's a huge turnout of events.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The expectations are what set up the shock when it happens. What do you think, August?
I feel like, in my opinion, Little Al's crash in 89 edges Hildebrand.
Okay.
Just due to the nature of Emerson and Little Al racing to the end. It was there. That was what was happening. With Hildebrand, unfortunately, he was passing lap traffic and made the rookie mistake of going high instead of just waiting to the exit of the corner and, passing him there. But it is the expectation. It's the expectation that somebody that has been leading will go on and win. And when your expectations are dashed, it leaves you in a little bit of suspense.
Yeah, that's basically it, and all the stuff that we've covered in this podcast, I mean, it really underlines how unique a race the 500 is. Some people say that it's like a sprint. Some people say it's more like an endurance. It's really a little bit of both. And because of the very special nature of it, it seems to attract instances like this. And I think Alberto really hit the nail on the head. The expectation is the reason why the response is what the F in a lot of instances, because of the backdrop of the expectation of this is the biggest race in the world. You're expecting, great performances and things that, have been cultivated over a month to come to fruition. And then when it doesn't do that or something else happens, it's very shocking. All right, cool. Well, listen, guys, thanks so much for meeting up for this. I really appreciate it. I know your time's worth a great deal. but I wanted to get expert opinion and analysis, and that's exactly what we got from both of you. Thanks very, very much.
Thank you, mate. That was good fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
thank you, Jason. Glad to be here.
Cool. And we're going to try to do another podcast sometime soon. It's hard to secure driver interviews, especially. That takes a lot of work. But definitely hope to see some of you on the track in our 65 mod, or see you on our YouTube channel when we show the highlights from races. Anyway, thanks again to Alberto and August. This is Jason White. Everybody take care and be safe.